What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Saturday, March 15th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:01 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe. So last night we had a very rare nuclear code transmitted by U.S. Strategic Command to U.S. nuclear forces. This was a 274 message, which is thought to be a special type of code that establishes the national command authority over nuclear weapons during a crisis situation. These messages are extremely rare, and we were listening to it live in the live stream late last night. And at the same time as this 274 message went out, Air Force 2 was sitting on the runway at Andrews Air Force Base outside of D.C. with its tracker turned on, and a nuclear war command and control plane was scrambled up into the air. So, very strange situation. So here's a clip of that rare nuclear code. This is a high priority nuclear code transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. Listen.
This is Ruby Red with a 274 message. Message of 3 groups follows. Sierra, Quebec, Foxtrot, Lima, X-Ray, Whiskey, Echo, November, Alpha, time, 0611, Zulu.
Wow. Message of 3 groups.
Identification, Oscar, X-Ray. I say again. Message of 3 groups follows. Sierra, Quebec, Foxtrot, Lima, X-Ray, Whiskey, Echo, November, Alpha, time, 0611, Zulu, authentication, Oscar, X-Ray. This is Ruby Red, out.
So, a very rare nuclear code transmitted last night by U.S. nuclear forces. And I want to remind you guys that yesterday we had a Cobra Ball, a Constant Phoenix, a Combat Sentinel, and a presidential doomsday plane all up in the air. The Cobra Ball is to detect and track ballistic missiles. The Constant Phoenix is a nuke sniffer. The Combat Sentinel is a high priority reconnaissance plane. And the doomsday plane is for the president during a nuclear war, and they were all airborne yesterday afternoon, which is very rare. So U.S. nuclear forces are on very, very high alert for some reason. And also, the night before, we heard the Russian monolith transmitted, which is a very rare nuclear code in Russia on the primary Russian nuclear war frequency. Typically is where they transmit the Russian monolith, but this time it was actually encoded, and the Russian monolith is thought to be specific instructions for Russian missile forces to arm their missiles, okay? And so they transmitted this monolith 2 nights ago, okay? And now the U.S. scrambling a nuke sniffer, a Constant Phoenix, a high priority reconnaissance plane, and a doomsday plane yesterday afternoon, and then this 274 message today. So something's definitely going on. And in Canada, there's going to be some kind of an emergency nuclear training exercise this coming week in the town of Amherstburg, which is near Detroit. I want to read to you what this bulletin says. From March 14th to March 21st, Amherstburg will be conducting a fictional nuclear training exercise to enhance emergency preparedness. And apparently it's going to be at the Libro Center on 3295 Malachi Road. So some kind of a fictional nuclear training exercise in Amherstburg, Canada. Very, very concerning. And last night, Russian nuclear bombers entered the airspace of South Korea. They entered South Korea's air defense identification zone. Here we have a picture of one of those Russian nuclear bombers. This is a Tu-95, also known as a Bear bomber. And this bomber carries the AS-15 Kent air-launched cruise missile, which has a range of 1,500 miles. And that cruise missile carries large nuclear warheads. They can carry up to 16 of those on each one of these Tu-95s. So this was clearly a show of force to South Korea because the U.S. and South Korea kicked off joint exercises this week. So this was clearly a show of force, of nuclear force to South Korea and the United States. Okay, Russia sending a nuclear bomber into South Korea's air defense identification zone. And it was escorted by these Sukhoi fighter jets as well. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply has brought back their discount on their 1-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithNYPrepper.com. The link is in the description below this video. But this is a 1-month freeze-dried food supply. And it contains all of the essential vitamins and minerals. And it's all packed inside of 2 rugged, watertight buckets. So literally, you have a month of food in 2 buckets. And the normal price is $350, and they're selling it for $250 for 4 weeks of freeze-dried food with a 25-year shelf life. Also, free shipping is included. So use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get $100 off their 4-week emergency food supply, 25-year shelf life. And the link is in the description below this video. And Trump ordered military action today against the Houthis. He launched a bunch of strikes. He said that the Biden administration wasn't tough enough on the Houthis and that the strikes against the Houthis were weak. So he launched strikes today. I'm going to be monitoring that and updating you guys accordingly. We had some GPS jamming activity in the Strait of Hormuz the last few days, as reported by the UK MTO, saying that there was GPS interference in the Strait of Hormuz, likely related to the joint Iranian, Russian, and Chinese naval exercises going on over there. And the Russian Defense Ministry said that 126 Ukrainian drones were destroyed over Russian provinces last night. So Ukraine launching another large drone attack on Russia. Russia has still not responded to that initial large drone attack a couple nights ago with 337 drones. And Ukraine said that Russia sent 198 drones last night. And Zelensky said the Russian army is amassing forces along the border with Ukraine's Sumy region and are likely to invade this area in the near future. The last time the Russians were in Sumy was in the initial first few weeks of the war. So this is very concerning. And Ukrainian forces using long-range drones hit a large logistical rail network in the town of Vyluki in the Belgorod Oblast. And a Russian missile hit Kryvyi Rih in Ukraine last night, 250 miles southeast of Kiev. leaving 11 people injured, including 2 children. And the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer kicked off an online summit today of the coalition of the willing who would go to secure Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. So they're already discussing sending peacekeepers into Ukraine when Russia already said that they will not allow peacekeepers in Ukraine. And here we have Keir Starmer holding an online conference today with a group of Ukrainian allies willing to send troops into Ukraine to secure Ukraine against Russia. Okay, and the Ukrainian soldiers in the Kursk region will be ruthlessly destroyed if they refuse to lay down their arms, and that's what Dmitry Medvedev said. And Iran, China, and Russia issued a joint statement condemning the U.S. maximum pressure strategy on Iran and called for the U.S. to lift all illegal unilateral sanctions. And Cuba is currently experiencing a massive nationwide power outage. The whole country of Cuba is in the dark right now. And Russia summoned the Norwegian ambassador to protest against Norway's militarization of the Svalbard archipelago. The Russians stated that such actions risk escalating tensions and increase the conflict potential there. So Svalbard is up near the North Pole. And the EU has no intention of stopping arms supplies to Ukraine if a 30-day ceasefire is established, according to DW, citing diplomats. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Trump has the ability to impose sanctions on Russia, but he doesn't want to do that at this time because he hopes to bring both sides of the conflict to the negotiating table. And Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said, "We will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form be part of the United States." And Russian media is reporting that a Ukrainian spokesman held secret phone calls with Putin, obviously discussing the peace deal. And the U.S. will no longer issue visas to Russian and Belarusian citizens. U.S. authorities intend to tighten entry regulations for citizens of 43 countries, including Russia and Belarus, the New York Times reported, citing sources. According to them, Washington will not close its borders for Russians and Belarusians completely. However, only wealthy entrepreneurs visiting the U.S. for business-related matters will be able to obtain visas. Tourists and migrants from Russia and Belarus will apparently be denied entry. The sources of the newspaper and the U.S. government said, wow, so huge change in policy there. And last night we had more reconnaissance in the Baltics and northern Poland. Here we have a private reconnaissance plane in Lithuania, Latvia, and northern Poland. And then we also had a NATO AWACS plane in Romania. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. Consider joining my Patreon. It's just $3 a month. I post all of my videos over there. YouTube is going to be changing some monetization policies, and also they've been shadow banning me for the last 2 to 3 months. So please consider supporting me on Patreon. Who knows what the future may bring? YouTube is getting crazier and crazier with all their different policies. So I may be back later on tonight with more breaking news, and check out my 24/7 live stream for continuing updates. Also, check out my free app in the Google Play Store, and it will be available for iPhone very soon. Also, follow me on Telegram, Twitter, and Rumble. I post all my updates over there. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.